Monday. Okay, so make sure you bring your drawing books on Monday. I'll look at them for the last 2 weeks. So this is where the video left off. So if you got to the end of the video, you basically should end up with a sequence rendered out, and then you have your scene. It's important in 3D that we do tests often, because what we're seeing in the viewport and what renders out sometimes can be two completely different things. So in this case, this is my preview. And you'll see in here that I'm not really getting anything, that looks anything like what the end result looks like. Okay, so what I did was I'm using a different program. This is called Nuke. If you stay in 3D, eventually you'll start playing with Nuke a little bit more. It's just a better program than After Effects for viewing this kind of stuff, so I'm inside of Nuke. So one of the cool things about it is I can load each sequence and I can just jump to whichever sequence I want to see. So if I look at one of my previous sequences here, this was like one of my first renders that I did. Okay, and it's okay, it gets the idea across that we definitely do have some red and blue lights. We got a spotlight kind of going across it, and then we have some other light hitting on the left side. But what I found with this was it was looking just a little bit too flat. Like it really didn't have the detail that I wanted or the look that I wanted. So what I did was I see this when it renders out. And for the most part, when you do these things, if you have it at home, you do it, you go out and have fun for a little bit, then you come back like an hour or two later, and then you check on it, okay? And that's the process. Or you read a book, or you whatever, okay? But we're always trying to have something rendering. There we go. So then what I did was I increased the bump on it. So I made more bump. I increased the reflectivity and actually chose a different kind of reflectivity. And then I think I even played with my lights a little bit too. So then I'm left with this one, which feels a lot more what I wanted. Okay? So that's the importance of these renders, is that we have to be seeing what they're going to look like and then start to tweak it. So now from the video, just so you can see what I've done differently, I passed it up. There it is. Under my reflectance, I chose Beckman. Okay? All of these different things that you're going to see, everything has these different options, right? So where it says Beckman, GGX, Fong, Ward, those are all different ways that they're calculating reflection, okay? Those are all based on, not GGX obviously, but the other ones are based on the people who invented the way that we observe reflections. Originally what they would do is it was basically a camera hits an object and then it bounces up and then you see the reflection in it. Okay, that was like a one-to-one. It's kind of like in Photoshop class, like your first semester in Photoshop, where you want a reflection, so you just took the object and you flipped it over and you added, some opacity to it. It looks like a reflection kind of, right? But it's not how reflection works. It's actually depending on how our light hits it, how the surface is, how the light from the surrounding area hits it, and the shape of the surface. All of those help give us the actual reflection that we know. So these ones down here are more of the old-fashioned ones. Really, they're quick. They're super quick because they're basically just like I said, it's flipping it over and just straight reflection. But then when we get up here, now we're getting something that's a little bit more time-intensive. They look a lot better, but definitely more time-intensive. So if I switch, look at the ball right there. If I switch to one of these uglier ones, it's not that one. There we go. I pretty much lose all the reflection and I have to come and play with that. But if I change it to one of the better ones, like Beckman, you can see how we really see that reflection in there. And if I take my gloss or roughness down, take the bump strength down, and my specular strength up, you can really see how smooth that is. And I'm also getting, is it loading my image? It should have loaded my image because I told it to load the image. Oh no, right, it's just reflection, duh. Yeah, so there's our reflection that's happening on top of that. Okay, so I want to have some roughness there. I want to have some bump strength on top of this. And I want to find something that looks decent. You could also tint it. So if you see something anywhere it says color, if it's transparency, if it's reflection, whatever, you can tint these things too. So I could actually tint my reflection to be kind of green and give it a different tone. So if I wanted my Batman logo to have like a yellow or an orange tone, I could do it right there inside of the reflection instead of doing that on the color itself. And then you see how it blends with the color and the reflection are kind of mixed together. So it's kind of a neat way to tint it, or also just kind of see what it looks like. Okay, and then I just went into my lights and I just adjusted some of their intensities a little bit. I still need to adjust some of these because if I look at this, the left side of this gets washed out pretty easy. Like right there, that's pretty washed out. There's probably a bit more washed out than I want. So again, I can see what the issue is, and then I can go back into Cinema and just knock down the intensity of that light. Okay, and same thing for this other light. We have this. Let me jump out of my camera. Yes, sir.
Does new update live?
No, I'd have to re-render it and then reload, and then it would. Yeah. I have this other light that's inside here. I don't believe this one was in there. I didn't do a backlight, right?
You did.
I did do a backlight. Okay.
Oh no, not a backlight. I'm sorry, I did aerial.
Right. So one of the things, I was losing some of my background. I was losing some of the shape of my letters. Every time it went dark, I would lose the entire letter. So what I did was I put a light behind it. So remember your photography class, you have a light behind the object just to help create some rim light. So that's what I'm getting in here. These little lights there, and this kind of stuff right here and right there. Those are helping pull out the shape a little bit better. Okay. Let me see if I have my very first one. That one. Yeah, this is without any of that rim light. So you see how blah this really is. Right, and so adding that rim light really helps kind of pull up some of that stuff. And again, it's one of those things where as you're progressing, you'll pick up on all these little details. And then where's my other light? So I have that light, this light, okay. So then I have this other light here. This is that area light that I did mention. And this one is flashing on and off, okay. Now if I watch the video of it, the good one, one of the things I don't like is that it's too consistent. Boom, boom, boom. The light goes on like in a pretty consistent manner. So I want to go back into Cinema and I want to just give it some variance, okay? Maybe even just kind of mess with the curves of it just to control what it's doing, okay? Because it feels like it's dropping down. I'm looking at the light on the far left side. It drops down to dark and then it bumps back up, and then it drops down to dark and bumps back up. It drops down to dark and bumps back up. It's too consistent. It's not a police light. This is kind of just like some random flashing light flickering or something. Okay, so that's all done on intensity. So if I right click on intensity, I go to my animation and I show my curve. This is all the curve for that animation. So what I can do is just kind of randomize this. So I can just move this one up, move that one down. And I'm not really even concerned with if I cross them, it's going to do something weird. I just want to give something different here than what I currently have. I just want this to look a little bit more interesting than what I currently had.
So it doesn't matter how you adjust it?
Well, it matters to a point. I don't want to go crazy and like crank it way up, then all of a sudden I'm blasting it. But I don't want to make it too subtle either, right? This is actually probably a little bit too tall. I'm going to shrink it down a bit. There we go. All right, so that's good there. I'm going to grab my spotlight here, and I'll go to the, oops, I'll just knock the intensity down on it. There we go. All right, so now it shouldn't be as bright. It shouldn't blow out as much. I could also just kind of preview this if I just look at this light while I hit play. And I'm just kind of looking to see if there's like a specific pattern. And it doesn't really feel like the same kind of pattern I had before. But I still see something there. So I'm going to go into this and oops, animation, curve. And I think what I'm going to do is just delete some of these keyframes. Whoops. There we go. All right, that feels better. So it's going to go dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, light, and then, you know, do that. All right. That should be good. Okay. So now let's watch that again. All right. It's not 100% accurate as far as what we're seeing. It's just the big changes. Yeah, that's probably will feel better. Okay. Now again, I would go out and I would do another test. Okay. The purpose of the tests is that they're supposed to be quick. If I start cranking up my settings and then I go to render off the entire thing like it's the last time I'm going to render it before I turn it in, and I find a glitch, that's a long time to render, a long time to go back and fix, and a long time to re-render it out and then turn it back in. Okay? So all of your tests should all be done at really low resolutions as far as your settings go. Now once your settings are good, then we can go into this and start saving out, turn these other ones off. Start saving these out with a bit more settings. So 960 by 540, that's what we set. Your frame range, oops. So I did 1 to 150. There we go. We save this to our folder. There is one thing I'm going to show too that we're going to need to play with. So I'm going to bring in one of my sequences. Okay, there's all my sequences right here. Number 4. Yep, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to drop this down here, and there's our word Gotham. All right. So now eventually the end product of this is we're going to add in, just like we saw in the example, is we're going to add in a skyscape in the background, we're going to add in some smoke in the foreground, and we want these things to look like they're all together. So if I were to just drop in a solid, and I'll make it a bright color just so we can see it. Okay, so on top of this layer, we see red. That's what we would expect. But if I drop it below this layer, what I would like to see is red behind the text. I don't see that, okay? What's happening is my layer is basically obscuring that. Even though we see these black spots here, there's no transparency to allow the red to show through, okay? So whenever we render something out, we have to tell it we want an alpha channel. And when we render an alpha channel, then we'll actually get transparency, okay? So I'm going to do just a quick one inside here. Oops, make sure it's on the right layer. There we go, there we go, there we go. Oh, I grabbed the wrong one, not that one. Keying, color range. There we go. Okay, so this is a quick one. This isn't what we would want for the end of it. But now we could see right through the letters. So if I put a skyscape behind this, we'd be able to see a skyscape. If I put clouds or whatever in front of this, I'd be able to kind of mix and mash those things together. The other thing I want to be able to do, let me jump back to this. I'm going to wipe this out and re-import it. There you go. The other thing I want to be able to do is I want to be able to match stuff up. So I grabbed some images from textures.com. I grabbed some clouds. Don't open Photoshop, please. Or fireworks. It's opening something. Not fireworks. Are you opening Photoshop? No, it's just that. Okay. So there's the clouds that I have. And then I also have a cityscape. There it is. And then I have this cloud, and then I have some water here. Okay. So eventually we'll get into using all of those kinds of things. But these are basically assets that I want to use to create a scene. So the Gotham one, it's basically like the letters are floating above the water, right? So there's water, there's a cityscape in the background, there's a big fog thing right in front of the camera, and then fog further on. So I'm using these different cloud elements, the water and the sky, to kind of incorporate all that. So when I drop this in here, and I put this behind it, like I want to see the background, so I'll just add that little quick key just so we can see it. There we go. All right, so now as this camera is moving, you'll see that the picture isn't moving. And so it looks kind of fake as to how this camera is not moving correctly, right? It looks really weird. So we could go through and try to scale up our stuff and reposition it and use 3D layers and try to do all that. But one of the reasons that we're using Cinema 4D is that it actually has a pretty direct path from Cinema into After Effects, where we could actually bring our camera from Cinema into After Effects, okay? So we'll be getting into that as well. I don't need any of these things here. It's good, it's good. Okay. I can turn that off too, don't need that. All right. So what you're gonna do is you've done this one. This is your practice one, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to scrap Gotham, because I don't want everyone to use the word Gotham because it's boring, because we're all individuals. We should have something that represents ourselves and looks professional, okay? So do the Gotham one, get as far as this, and then scrap it and make a new one, okay? You're doing pretty much the same stuff. You might pick different colors, you might pick a different material. Maybe you want to choose wood and not metal because that fits more of what you're trying to show off. Maybe you want plastic, maybe you want something else, okay? So you're gonna pick a different word. I still want the same things as far as, like, I don't need the red and blue flashing lights, but I do want to see some sort of light effect where we're getting some sort of thing besides one solid light in our scene, okay? So I want to have something else happening inside there. Maybe you like dancing and you do a disco, right? So you switch from red to blue to green to yellow to whatever. That might be kind of cool. Same kind of camera move, whatever. Okay, so you're going to do that. And then when you render it out, you'll crank your settings up like we did in the room. I'm not sure why this is locked out. Oh, there we go. So I would go to best. I would just leave that at 4x4. I would also make sure that when I save my image, here's that alpha channel so that I get transparency. And then when I render it out, then I would bring it into After Effects. So we'll go over this part next class of how to do all of this, bringing it all together, okay? Now that you've done it once on the Gotham, this next one should take literally half the time because you've already been through the steps. You could also start searching for source images. So if you, let's say you like karate, you want to do the word karate and you want to put it in a dojo. So I would find words or pictures that go along with that, right? So I would have a karate mat, belts on the wall, something, right? And I try to put all that together. Okay? So that's where we're at today. So you're going to finish the Gotham if you got to the end of the video. Then you're going to scrap it, make a new one, and start on a brand new word, brand new texture. Again, this is going to reinforce all the stuff we've done and just get you ready for more of the workflows that we're going to be using throughout the rest of the class. Okay?
Do we have to scrap it, though?
Yes.